Have you ever looked into a dog's eyes and felt like he was asking you for something, but you couldn't figure out what? It wasn't food. It wasn't affection. It was something much deeper. It was safety. There's a kind of pain that doesn't show up on x-rays. It leaves no visible scar. It doesn't bleed. But it's there, hidden inside an animal who once learned that the human world is a dangerous place. Dogs who have suffered abuse carry something that most people will never see just by looking at them. On the outside, some seem shy, others seem aggressive. Many come across as strange, difficult, unpredictable, but none of them chose to be that way. Imagine a puppy that grew up never knowing what a gentle touch feels like, who learned to associate a human hand not with comfort, but with pain, who figured out very early on that getting close is risky, that barking might mean punishment, that trusting is dangerous. That puppy grows up, the body grows, but the wound stays exactly the same size it was when he was small. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Not just what these dogs went through, but what they feel, what happens inside their minds, and why understanding this can completely change the way you see a traumatized animal. Science has a name for what happens to dogs who have been abused. It's called complex trauma. And yes, dogs develop trauma the same way humans do. The brain of an abused dog literally rewires itself. When an animal lives under constant threat, screaming, kicking, isolation, starvation, the nervous system locks into permanent survival mode. The body releases cortisol, the stress hormone, in massive amounts. And over time, the brain begins to treat every single stimulus as a potential threat. A loud noise, a hand moving too fast, a deeper voice, the smell of alcohol, even a broom leaning against a wall. For a healthy dog, these are just ordinary parts of daily life. For a traumatized dog, every one of those triggers can set off the same panic he felt while being attacked. Neuroscience has a name for this, traumatic triggers, and they work exactly the same way they do in humans with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. The dog isn't being difficult. He's reliving the danger in real time, inside his own body. And the most heartbreaking part? He can't explain that to you. He has no way of saying, I'm scared because someone hurt me before. He just reacts. And far too often, that reaction gets labeled as bad behavior. How many dogs have been returned to shelters, or worse, because of behaviors that were, in reality, cries for help disguised as aggression? Here's something most people don't know, and it changes everything. Dogs who have suffered abuse develop something called learned helplessness. This concept was first studied by psychologist Martin Seligman, and it's devastating to truly understand. When an animal is repeatedly placed in situations of pain or threat that he cannot escape, the brain begins to register a deep-seated belief. No matter what I do, I have no control over what happens to me. Over time, that animal simply stops trying, stops reacting, stops looking for a way out, stops showing what he feels. From the outside, it looks like he's calm. It looks like he's adjusted well to the situation. It looks like everything is fine, but it's not. He simply gave up believing that his actions matter. This is why so many rescued dogs seem detached and distant in the first few days. They're not relaxed. They're broken on the inside. They're still waiting for the worst to happen, still waiting for the pain to come back. And there's yet another layer to this story. Recent research in epigenetics, the science that studies how experiences alter gene expression, shows that trauma in dogs can leave biological marks, not just psychological ones. Severe, prolonged stress structurally alters the functioning of the nervous system. In other words, the suffering this animal lived through isn't just stored in memory. It's stored in the body. It's stored in the cells. That doesn't mean he can't recover. It means that recovery requires time, patience, and a genuine understanding of what is happening inside him. Now, I want you to picture a scene. A rescued dog arrives at a new home. There's food, there's a bed, there are people who genuinely want what's best for him. Everything he ever needed is finally right there, but he hides behind the couch. He trembles when someone walks toward him. He growls when they try to put on his leash. He can't truly sleep, any sound at all, and he's already jumping up, wide-eyed, heart racing. The family tries everything, gentle pets, toys, treats, patience, but nothing seems to really work. And then, one night, while the house is quiet, he comes out from behind the couch, slowly, with careful steps, and he lies down near the foot of the bed of one of the family members. He doesn't touch anyone. He doesn't ask for affection. He just stays there. At the distance, he considers safe. For that dog, this is an act of enormous courage. You need to understand. For an animal who learned that humans cause pain, choosing to stay close is one of the bravest things there is. It isn't small. It's huge. Reconnecting with trust doesn't happen in days. It happens in millimeters, in small gestures that, to someone watching from the outside, might seem insignificant. But for the dog, every inch of closeness is a battle won against his own fear. And here is the most powerful finding of all. Researchers at the University of Lincoln in the United Kingdom discovered that dogs are capable of distinguishing human emotional expressions, joy, anger, sadness, with remarkable accuracy. They read our faces. They read our tone of voice. They read our body language. This means that a traumatized dog, when he moves toward you despite all the fear he carries, has already studied you, has already assessed whether you are safe, has already processed signals you didn't even know you were sending, and he came closer anyway. Think about what that means. We live in a world that often judges by surface-level behavior. A dog that barks a lot is aggressive. A dog that runs away is antisocial. A dog that doesn't obey is hard to train. But what if, just for a moment, we stopped asking, what is this animal doing wrong? And started asking, what did this animal go through to act this way? That shift in perspective is a small one, but it changes everything. Because when you stop seeing behavior as a problem and start seeing it as communication, you start to listen. And when you listen, you realize that this dog isn't attacking you. He's telling you, I've been betrayed before, and I'm still here. The recovery of a traumatized dog is one of the most quietly beautiful things in the world. There's no fanfare, no dramatic moment. It happens on an ordinary afternoon when, for the first time, he rests his snout in your hand and doesn't pull away. It happens when he starts sleeping through the night without trembling, when he seeks out affection without being called, when he looks up at you, and in his eyes, where the fear used to live, something appears that he may have never felt before: peace. And that leaves us with a reflection that reaches far beyond dogs. How many beings, human or not, are being judged for the trauma they carry, instead of being understood because of it? The dog who suffered abuse doesn't need you to be perfect. He doesn't need elaborate techniques or magic solutions. He needs something far simpler, and at the same time, far rarer. He needs you to show up, every single day, with consistency, with calm, with presence. Because for someone who has spent their whole life waiting to be abandoned or hurt, someone who simply stays is the greatest act of love there is. If this video touched something in you, share it with someone who has, or is thinking about adopting, a rescue dog. Sometimes, one piece of information can completely change the way someone cares for an animal, and that can save a life. See you in the next video.